You could have the best product, the best idea, the best life-changing solution. But if no one knows about it and no one understands how it will impact them, it doesn't matter.
Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Carl Scott, the General Manager of High Growth Creators at Thinkific and co-founder of Sell It by Serhant. Yes, the same Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing. Carl co-created this online course that has helped over 10 million people master the art of sales. In this episode, Carl shares how he convinced Ryan Serhant to turn his best-selling book into an 8-figure online course and how you can take the bold steps to build your own digital empire. Get ready to learn how Carl brought his vision to life, built a thriving business, and continues to empower creators to do the same. You won't want to miss this dynamic episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider sharing it with your friends, family, or colleagues. Personal recommendations are the best way to help our audience grow. So, Carl, it's an absolute delight to have you here today. There's really nobody that's more qualified than you to be talking about the credit economy and everything that comes out of it. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Nikki. It's so good to be on your podcast.
Thank you. And so, Carl, let's maybe just start at the start of it all. I'm really interested in how you got into this whole 8-figure business shtick. How do you do it? How do you become the guy that knows how to create millionaires?
Yeah, Nikki, it's funny because it was completely accidental. You cannot predict where the opportunities are going to come and where your next career move is going to be. So, my background, I thought I was going to go into finance and banking. I was an applied economics and management major at Cornell, concentrating in finance and accounting. Like everybody else at Cornell in the business program, I was going to go into consulting, I was going to go into investment banking, something like that. But here's what happened. I fell in love with media. I was running my college radio station, and it was an independent business. I really started to realize I like this intersection of business and media. Got into NBC as a page. So if you watch 30 Rock, that now old show was like Kenneth the Page for the start of my career. And then I stayed at NBC for 10 years as a producer on the broadcast side, NBC Nightly News, Today Show, NBC News specials, ended up covering the Trump-Clinton campaign in 2016 for digital. And then I launched a vertical called NBC News Better, which was all about how to make our audience's lives better at a time when advertisers were running away from traditional news advertising. Because that, if you remember back in 2016, 2017, it was very, very politicized. That was the rise of President Trump. And all of a sudden, politics and the coverage of politics became extremely divisive. So great advertising opportunity. NBC said, hey, advertisers, come on and advertise on our new platform about audiences' lives being better. That's fantastic, right? So what I realized that the way that sort of society is moving, it's moving away from these big companies. Dove soap always came to mind in that role where it's we could do something with Dove soap about how to clean your body and make yourself cleaner in the morning. Totally in line with our vertical about health and wellness and personal finance and career development. But what I realized is it's actually the people, what was then the beginning of the creator economy, that were really helping make other people's lives better. So I started interviewing all of these, what we would call thought leaders. And I realized all of them have these independent businesses that are getting quite large. There's all of these thought leaders making millions of dollars a year, helping other people become a better version of themselves, helping other people save more in personal finance, helping other people invest more, helping other people build businesses, helping other people take a better shower, right? If you're into cleanliness and that's your niche, there are riches and niches for sure. There are people who are making millions of dollars doing that. I just interviewed the other day someone who makes millions selling Notion templates. Now, Notion, the database tool. So it's out there, and I started to realize this trend. So I pitched this guy named Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing. He had a book that came out called Sell It Like Serhant that was helping independent salespeople and salespeople who worked at sort of small businesses, like the wine salesperson, the hot tub salesperson. He was helping them sell more. And I said to him, hey, you have this book. What would it look like to take your best-selling book and turn it into a course? He said, sure. because I told him, hey, I'll do this outline for you. I'll do it for you if you don't like the work, because I had never done it before. Like, I was a good producer, but I'd never built a course. So if you don't like it, you don't have to pay me. How do you say no to that? So what I ended up doing, I built this course nights and weekends for basically a year. We launched it. It made $500,000 in 2 weeks. And I realized I stumbled upon something. Joined Ryan, built a $10 million business with Ryan. And then once you cross that threshold, and I'd been doing it for like 5-6 years, if you include the freelance time, I left and came to Thinkific, where I'm now general manager of high growth creators and have the ability to help the thousands of creators in my portfolio of customers at Thinkific build better businesses, helping other people online. It's like, it's crazy, Nikki, because I could have never projected going from Cornell thinking I was going to do finance or consulting like everybody else to, in a way, I kind of ended up in a weird consulting role now where I'm helping other people build businesses, but in a completely different way than I would have imagined.
And I love this, Carl, and there's just so much to unpack because your career trajectory in some ways is similar to mine. You know, I studied a very traditional course. I studied architecture and I studied international business. And then when I started working, I was like, well, actually development is more exciting than architecture. I want to be the client. And then I got into the tech stuff. Then I got into the speaking and so on and so forth. And I think that this is the new world of work where individuals that know their worth, they want to get their name out there and they can. And I think the modern workplace is broken because you have these talented, enthusiastic people that just aren't getting recognized. So when they go out on their own, when they show that, hey, I'm adaptable, I can learn something new, I can do it, you know, banking on yourself, it kind of pays off. And that's what I love about your journey. It's like, yeah, from news to taking the initiative to actually reach out to someone to, you know, going into being able to, you know, share what you know. Like, I mean, this is incredible.
You know, Nikki, it's funny that you say that taking the initiative part. I was actually rewatching a Instagram video on my Instagram because I'm trying to like remake basically my social media presence, but an interview that I did with a guy named Buck Wise, who is this really good like agency marketer and helps people build personal brands. He was asking me about storytelling. And one of the things that I realized is that you have the opportunity to tell the story that you want to tell in the role that you are in today. But it takes like grabbing your career and crafting the story around it. Like, you can be passive and let it happen to you. You can be passive and let other people give you the opportunities. But for me, every big change, every chapter I've written, from Cornell to NBC to Ryan Serhant World to now Thinkific, that was an opportunity that I sort of grabbed. And you can use the word manifest. I think it's a loaded term, but I created it for myself. And you have to be, and very similar to you, Nikki, like no one, I don't think, came to you and said like, hey, Nikki, do you want to be a futurist? You discovered that's what you want to do. And you drove that career path for yourself because you realize this is what I want and this is what I'm good at.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing. And I kind of call it, you know, like design your own career. You know, if you're hardworking, if you've got knowledge, like latch onto it and go with it. But now, Carl, this podcast is called The Visionary. And I believe that you really encompass it because you're not just someone that has a vision. You're actually somebody that's been able to take that vision into reality. And like, you know, and this is why I reference this Salad course in amongst everything else that you've done, because you've got the results, you've got the numbers. Like, how do you take that idea from, you know, quite literally, you know, door knocking and saying, hey, I want to do this for you, to making it a reality, like growing it, convincing him, getting the budget, getting the resources, taking a dream into reality? Like, tell us the steps, like unpack it.
Yeah, I love the way that you frame it because that is what I did to Ryan. I knocked on his door. He didn't come to me and say, hey, you NBC News producer, I want you to make my course. Like I knocked on his door. And that's how I've always done it. The only way I've ever been able to explain this, when people ask me like, where do you get the motivation from? Where do you get that drive from? It comes from my gut. Like it's just internal. It's inherent in me. And I think it comes from guilt. Like you have to, if you want something, it is obviously my perspective and my sort of lived reality, if you want to use that term. But what I've always found is that the things that I have wanted and have ultimately gotten, I've gotten because I felt guilty not going after them. I felt guilty when I woke up in the morning and said, oh God, I really need to do that. Like, why am I not doing it? And it was almost like being driven by that guilt, being driven by that anxiety of not doing the thing that got me to do the thing that I wanted to do.
All right. So you've got the drive. You're knocking on the door. At some point, you're going, I need money. I need to start being paid
Yeah,
for
I'll tell
it.
you how I did that. And I work on this a lot with creators now at Thinkific, because the reality is that if you're building a digital course, you're building a digital product, you're building a digital empire, there are great margins in that business, because it's not like you're constructing something physical. Once you record, if you're doing a course, for example, you're doing a digital product, once you record it or make it, it's basically pure profit after that. So here's how I pitched the Ryan course, and here's how I recommend that really anyone who's pitching anything approaches it. You need to show ROI. It's that simple. So here's what I did for Ryan. I came up with, hey, based on your social followers, here's what I think we can sell. And also based on comparables, right? Ryan's a real estate agent. So he loves comps. You love a good comp and a good real estate sale. So based on the comparables, here's what's possible. Based on your followers, based on your opportunity, here's what I see. Here are some options. I did a high, medium, low scenario for price point for the course. And I did a high, medium, low scenario for budget/investment. So I called it good, better, best. I mean, pretty standard, but do a good, better, best. Don't call it bad, good, awesome. Good, better, best. So, and I showed a grid, and I showed, hey, here's scenario 1 with budget, investment, good. And here's price point A, B, and C. I think it's like, we're going to sell the course for $4.99, $5.99, and $6.99. Then we did a better, a little bit more investment, and I explained what that looks like. Like, it looked like more cameras, like more bells and whistles on the production. And then we did a best, where we were going to do like a 4-day production. We were going to, I didn't think he was going to pick the best. I think we picked better, as most people do. They pick the middle line. So I showed him, hey, here's what the potential is, but also here's what you're risking. Here is break even. And break even was really, really low, which is good. Basically, we had to sell something like 50 to 70 enrollments in order to break even at any of those price points. And then what I did was I said, here's your follower count. Those 50 or 70 enrollments is like 0.05%, or it was like 0.02% of your follower. Do you think out of the millions of followers that we can sell 50 courses based on your best-selling book and based on everything you got? The answer is obviously yes. The answer is obviously yes, because I set it up that way. So that is how I ended up getting the budget and the green light to go ahead. I showed what the return is, but I also showed the downside, because you have to show what's at risk. And depending on the risk profile of the person that you're pitching, that could be in different areas, right? Like your downside risk, I know for Ryan tends to be very, very risk averse. So for him, I had to show there's low downside risk, like cut the budget as low as possible. This is what we could potentially stand to lose, but here's what happened. He made back his investment in 8 hours. 8 hours. And we ended up making $500,000 in 2 weeks. And there's actually a news article about this. I think it's in the Daily News. If you look up Ryan Serhant online course, or Daily, maybe the Daily Post here in New York. But there's an article about how much we made at that launch.
No, I love this story for a number of reasons, because I think it shows the breadth of your lifetime experience and how you've applied it. You've got your finance degree, which you thought you'd go into to be able to create these budgets. You've got your producing, that you know what it's going to cost. You've got your enthusiasm. You've got all these different elements that are kind of coming together. And what I'm also hearing is that it just sounds like the marrying of a good partnership, because yes, Ryan had this audience, but you came in to say, hey, I'm going to create a whole new business unit. I can bring you something. And you banked on yourself to bring this to life. You didn't ask somebody to bring in the opportunity, and you over-delivered, but you also did it in a way that was reflective of stuff that you were already expert at. You're not coming in saying, hey, I'm the latest and greatest and I'm so cool and look at what I can do, when you're trying to figure out 95% of it. Yeah. You probably knew about 70% of it. Yeah. It was just the content that you're like, hey, this is the partnership coming in, Yeah. And I'd imagine that is why it was a success, that you're smart about the partner you chose and what you could bring, and really knew that you could do it.
Yeah, there's a big point in business to choose the right partner, because you can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone. Everyone brings a different set of skills to the table, and you have to pick someone who has complementary skill sets, for sure. I would say the other thing is, yes, I had all the background, but in the areas that I didn't know. So, for example, I wasn't yet an expert at like online course launches and e-commerce. So really the web and marketing funnel side, right? So yes, I had an academic background in finance and accounting. So I knew how to make budgets and talk about business, right? Accounting is the language of business. I had a content background in production and understand production budgets and production schedules. And also from NBC, how to take complex topics and boil it down into a subject that audiences can easily understand. That is the news. You take like the economy and like the stocks are crashing. Your audience at NBC News is sort of like we always called it like a kitchen table finances, right? It's like the average American, everyday American is watching Today Show or Nightly News. So you can't make it overly complex. You have to boil it down into a way that people who are sitting around at their kitchen table, taking out their checkbook, balancing the checkbook, can interpret and be excited about and understand to make an impact for them. So I had all of that, but because I was a journalist, because I learned how to be a really good journalist at NBC News, I learned how to find information. I learned how to find the people who I had to learn from in order to have a successful launch, because having the product is only one part of it. I was able to execute a product that people actually liked and purchased more and more and more of as we grew, right? It wasn't a flash in the pan where we sold them and then no one came back. Like we grew to a $10 million business. But also you have to actually execute on the launch and the sales part. And the sales part is actually the more important part, because you could have the best product, the best idea, the best life-changing solution. But if no one knows about it and no one understands how it will impact them, really the sales and the marketing side, it doesn't matter. It might as well be that metaphorical tree that fell in the forest, right? If there's no one around to hear it, did it even happen? And the answer is no when it comes to sales and marketing. So you really gotta know what you don't know, and then fill in the blanks either with a good partner and or with mentors and people who can teach you what you need to know.
Yeah, that's amazing, Carl. And I suppose, as you're talking, one of the things I was thinking about is, that whole career journey. And, really more than the career journey, really the product journey, that you're coming in, you're starting something up, you're launching it. Along the way, it's becoming more mature. You're getting more resources, and then you're getting to a point where it's, really kind of exploded. So, for you coming in and really as an entrepreneur in this, in this environment, how did you kind of think about that scaling side of things from, what was that bare bones team at the start that managed you to keep the costs to only needing to sell, 50 to 70 memberships, to going to, well, this is a mature product. We're going to expand it to where it is today. And I'm going to combine it into another question about, the advice that, you now as general manager at, Thinkific, like what is the advice that you're giving to young creators that want to follow a similar path, but really want to create something of substance?
Yeah. So it was just me at first, right? Like Ryan was selling real estate, running around selling real estate, and he's obviously very good at it. But like when we started, yes, we made 500,000, but there's expenses that come, along with that. The expenses weren't that much at the beginning, but then, Ryan then hired me. So the expenses were a salary. And then, we had to have some sort of CRM, like a very basic, like we started HubSpot, that cost money. And then we were on Thinkific, the course platform that has a SaaS subscription fee. It's low and affordable, but once you start going, there's like these like surprising costs that just start adding up, and you have to be really careful about it. So I made my first hire 2 months in, because what ended up happening was I made the argument that, hey, you're paying me this. I'm spending a lot of time doing these administrative functions. We've proven that there's some legs here, right? I can keep doing these administrative functions, one of which was managing going to the customer service inbox. One of which was posting in the community every day. One of which was going to the physical post office and mailing completion certificates. All needs to be done. And it's not that it was like below me. I kept doing it and like, et cetera. It's about time efficiency. It's about how do you scale yourself? Because if you as the business owner or the business owner operator are always doing all of the tasks, your business isn't going to grow. Your business can only grow as much as the time that you have. So I found someone amazing who I could not have done this without. Her name is Sydney Sherman. I hired her and she became our community manager / operations person / right? And there was just the two of us. And then the following year, like it was probably like 6 months later. Okay, great. We're growing. We ended up doing $1 million our first year with 2 people. And then, okay, maybe there's more legs here. We got to actually get a marketing machine going beyond just organic sort of social and newsletter lists, et cetera. So then I hired a marketer his name is Raphael. He is fantastic. So it's really the 3 of us who for the next like year or so kept growing the revenue. So Raphael did the marketing, Sydney did the community management, and I did like kind of everything else / strategizing / growth / still remember, we were still making new products. So I was still producing the courses. I was still doing some of the coaching program too. So there was a lot, but it was a small and mighty team. And that's the best way to start. Do not overinvest.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing in this is, again, it's that you're also versatile and invested. And one of, remember there was a whole thing about people quiet quitting, as we started opening up after the pandemic. The number one reason is that people were just bored in their jobs. They didn't see any avenues to growth and to expansion into another role. Now, when you have diversity, when you have that opportunity to kind of like step up and do something more or figure something out, like we're all smart, we're all we're all people, we're adaptable, we love to learn. But you kind of also use that example of saying, okay, well, there was like a lot of, we'll call it, repetitive, kind of dull work that you realized you needed to get out of. And I talk a lot about automations. And one of the things is that in the robotics industry, they say that anything that's repetitive, dull, or dangerous, that's perfect for automation. Well, the other thing that you try to do with tasks is that you try and figure out, well, can we eliminate it? Do we even need to be doing it? Can we delegate it, which is what you did? Or can you automate it? So those are kind of those 3 things that you want to be looking at to essentially free up your time when you have a super lean team so that you can do more meaningful work. I've got virtual assistants that I work with in the Philippines who are absolutely fantastic. And I'm also conscious that I give them a variety of work so that there's stuff that's, familiar for them. But then there's also things that are stretch opportunities and growth opportunities so that they're getting to be creative or try something new so that they're staying engaged. But Carl, I might just end up just asking you a few rapid fire questions. Just
Sure.
that I know you're constantly posting on LinkedIn and on your Instagram accounts. You have your fantastic newsletter. You've been very transparent about how you yourself as a creator are going on this journey. So I'd love to learn more about your habits, like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, if you don't mind sharing some of it. So we're going to go rapid fire questions, short answers. If we can maybe start, are you a morning person, night owl? When do you do your best work?
Morning.
Morning? How do you structure your day? How do you structure your week?
Yeah, my week. I'll start with the week. So every Sunday, which is really Saturday, Sunday when I have time because I also have kids, but I have it in my calendar every Sunday. I have a weekly review that I do. And I have a Notion document that has a checklist on it with attached to, it's like the checklist of what I have to do with a relevant document next to it. So I can just click the document, it opens, and I do the thing. And what it is a look back for the prior week and a look ahead to the following week. So I am a big believer, and this is like standard management practice. The things that you track are the things that you move. So the number one thing that I track every Sunday is my net worth tracker. I look at my investments, I look at my expenses, I look at income every single Sunday, because if otherwise you're just guessing, right? You're just guessing. So I do that and it makes me like feel good also a little bit, or when the stock market's down, I'm like, damn it. But also long time horizon. Then I do calendar. So I look at everything from the prior week, like random things that I didn't follow up on because you get so busy. And then calendar for the week ahead. What is not properly formatted in the calendar? Like where are there overlaps? Like just kind of like calendar cleanup. Then I love this. I have everyone's birthday, it really like the most important people's birthday in my life, on the calendar, and I physically write cards every Sunday. I actually do it. It drives my wife crazy because I'm like, what is that person's address in that voice. But it drives her crazy. But I do cards every Sunday for birthdays and anniversaries. And then I do social followers. So I track my LinkedIn and my Instagram growth because you can't manage what you can't measure. If you measure it, it will improve. And then the harder part, like when you really start to get into it, is email cleanup and to-dos. What are my priorities for the week? And then just trying to do my best to keep on email. I can't get, like, email is impossible. You got to give up on email and keeping it clean and neat. But the to-dos and the priorities for the week are really important, especially as I start to travel more. I'm basically traveling every week for Thinkific now through like October. So if I don't get that right, like, it's going to be a disaster.
I love that. I love the way you structure everything. That's amazing. Philosophers, theorists, authors, inventors, who do you follow? Who do you admire? Who do you subscribe to?
There's so many. Keith Ferrazzi, who wrote a book called Never Eat Alone, is a big one. I've always looked up to this guy. I followed his advice on networking. Literally, I read his book in high school. It changed my life. That's one. Ryan Serhant's book, Like Serhant, not only because I made the course and built a business with him, but he, like, some of the structure that I use, like, for example, every day, we didn't talk about this, I have finder time in my calendar because the number one job of a business leader is sales, generating leads, keeping in touch, follow through, follow back. Like, I learned a lot from Ryan and working with him and growing a business with him. And then, there's, from like a productivity perspective, there's someone named David Allen who wrote a book called, and now, of course, Getting Things Done. David Allen wrote a book called Getting Things Done. And then there's some like random like people who I'm now finding as I like carve out a new space. Like our CEO, Greg Smith, incredible what he built from going from a lawyer to CEO of what ended up exiting as a $1 billion valuation company, a true unicorn, like what he built. That's absolutely incredible. And how he now manages this company. Someone else who I look up to for inspiration.
Brilliant. Thank you. Technology. What do you use? You mentioned Notion. Are you using any AI tools? What's helping you be more efficient?
Notion, for sure. Always recommend Notion. I also now use Notion Calendar as my calendar. We are really big at Thinkific on Slack. So I've gotten quite good at Slack and setting your Slack reminders and things like that. But my life, I feel like, is now organized in Notion. Like, that's the number one thing that I would recommend.
Great. Carl, any final thoughts? Love to know what you think. Like, what is the future of work? What advice do you have to everyone out there?
Look, we are all our own individual media companies. Like, the creator is the next mass media company. And guess what? We are all creators. We all have a broadcast platform in our pocket with this phone. And what that means is that all of us get to control our own destiny because we can all spread our words, spread our knowledge, spread our expertise, spread our desires out into the world at every second. You just have to get the routine down to do it. But what is incredible in this world of social media, where there's no gatekeeper who used to be the broadcast news producer or the editor at the newspaper, where there is no gatekeeper, it's up to you. The ball is now in your court to figure out what you want and what you're going to put out in the world to go get it. Can't blame anyone. Can't say, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't fast enough. It's on to be selected for the news. It's on you. Go out and put it out, because that is like the future of work, is creating our own careers, creating our own paths through the power of media and putting stuff out to the world.
And having a voice for yourself. I think there's a lot of professionals that, because the traditional career path, they might be there promoting the company, but not promoting themselves. But this is a new world that we're in. And if you put out content, if people resonate with it, then you find an audience. If you put out content and no one resonates with it, then you don't have an audience. But like, so what? It's an absolute privilege that we get to do this in this new media landscape.
Yeah, and you experiment. Like, don't be afraid. That's the thing. Like, people put something out and they're like, cricket, like no one listens to it. That's because you don't have the right audience. You don't have the right message for the audience. But also remember, if you're trying to change messages, Nikki, you and I have talked about this, like sometimes you have to be okay letting go of an old audience to get the new audience that you want.
Yeah. And I think that's been the theme of today, really. It's about this idea of evolution. And growing from that point where you started isn't necessarily where you are today. And I think, honestly, Carl, I think for both of us, this is not the end of our career journeys. We're going to make a whole lot of different pivots. It's all going to be compatible. But I think that there's a lot of power in being able to say, hey, I'm an expert at a lot of things and I get to chart my own course. But it's been so wonderful having you here. It's almost like ask your friends what they do in a day. This has been absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much for joining, Carl, and sharing all of your insights and all of your knowledge. Just as a final sign off, where can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, so go to my Instagram, Kyle Scott Original. There is a link in bio. On that link in bio, you can learn more about what I do at Thinkific and the amazing opportunities for all of us, everyone listening, to really create your own media brand that you can monetize, not just by brand sponsorships, but really truly monetize your thought leadership through creating courses, through creating digital downloads. There's a free trial link to Thinkific. You can sign up for my personal newsletter on there, or you can go to kylescott.com to do that as well, where I keep everyone up to date on the projects that I'm working on. I'm also launching my own podcast. It is called 8-Figure IP. Once that is out, you'll be able to get that at my link in bio as well. Instagram, Kyle Scott Original.
I love it. Practicing what you preach. Thanks so much, Carl. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Nikki.
A big thank you to Carl Scott for sharing his insights on the future of the creator economy. You've been listening to The Visionaries, and I'm your host, Nikki Greenberg. If today's episode has sparked your imagination, be sure to check out our back catalogue where you'll hear from other inspiring visionaries on how they've been able to turn bold ideas into reality. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe or follow so that you'll never miss an episode, and always stay inspired to bring your big idea to life. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on YouTube at Nikki Greenberg.